So the final day of league games in the women's under-19 T20 Quadrangular series in Visakhapatnam was meant to be a really exciting day, a day of closely contested games with an improved West Indies on show, with Sri Lanka who were just coming off their first win. India A had a lot to prove, having been beaten by India B, so it was supposed to be a really evenly contested day of games, but unfortunately, the last day of league games ended up seeing two of the most one-sided contests in the tournament so far. So the first game of the day, India A versus Sri Lanka, it was a virtual semi-final, a winner-takes-all contest, the winner proceeding into the final. India A won the toss, opted to bat first, and for the first 6 to 7 overs, it did look like it was going to be a very evenly contested game. Sri Lanka, as usual, came into the contest with a lot of energy. There were laughs, there were a lot of high fives. They ran into the ground high-fiving each other, in their own characteristic way. And there was a lot of cheering and laughing in those first 6 to 7 overs. India A, of course, went into the contest with a changed opening pair. Soumya Tiwari, slightly short on runs herself, replaced Roshni Kiran at the top of the order. She partnered Shweta Sehrawat, who is in the form of her life. But strangely enough, Shweta took a while to get going. She hit the field a lot in those first 6 overs. Sri Lanka had planned really, really well to her. They had a deep cover out there to block off that boundary option, very tight ring on the offside. Interestingly enough, kept mid-wicket open to her and bowled on the off stump, attacked her there, and she kept cutting and hitting the field. So Sri Lanka kept the runs down at the start. It was Soumya Tiwari, in fact, who took on the role of aggressor, while Shweta continued to cut to the field, to drive to extra cover. Soumya was keen enough to move across her stumps and expose that vacant mid-wicket region. She collected a couple of boundaries there as well, and she was the one who kind of got a bit of momentum into the innings. But unfortunately for Sri Lanka, when they failed to find a wicket in those first 7 or 8 overs, you could actually feel the energy start to drop in the field. It was almost like things began to drift. And then once the spinners came on, Shweta started to find her rhythm, and it wasn't through the offside. It was through the use of her sweep shots. She started playing a lot of slog sweeps, some really fine paddle shots, and started to find the boundary and really amped up the run rate. The pair shared a 116-run opening stand. Shweta Sehrawat brought up another half-century and continued her excellent form. But it was actually Soumya Tiwari who really drove the partnership. She was the one who kept communicating with Shweta, especially at the start of the innings when she was constantly finding the field. Soumya was pointing to different parts of the field, pointing to different gaps that she thought she could try and access, giving her maybe shot options, and there was a lot of clear communication between the two. And I thought Soumya Tiwari, although she ended up playing second fiddle once Shweta really found her flow, thought Soumya was the one who drove the partnership and really showed great leadership at the start of the game. And while Sri Lanka did well after the fall of Shweta's wicket to kind of bring the run rate down, it looked, towards the end as if India A may only get to around 160. But Sonia Mendhiya came in complete beast mode and clobbered an unbeaten 35 off just 20 balls. In fact, she was the reason India A were able to get 20 runs off that final over. She contributed 19 of those 20 runs, including smacking 2 massive sixes over mid-wicket. And India A eventually got to 175 for 1. Now, to chase down a target of that magnitude, there was absolutely no doubt that Sri Lanka needed Vishmi Gunaratne to fire. They needed Sumudhu Nisansala to support her as well. And unfortunately for Sri Lanka, Tita Shradhu cleaned up Sumudhu in her first over, and it meant that Sri Lanka after that were always chasing the 8 ball. Vishmi did show signs of her aggression. She did cart Yashasri for a 6-over cover. She took her over point as well. There were glimpses of that aggressive ability, but India A were just too good with the ball. That run rate pressure kind of sat heavy on Sri Lanka's shoulders, and India A made sure that they never let Sri Lanka get away. Archana Devi bowled an absolute jaffa to clean up Vishmi bowled her through the gate with a brilliant delivery, and that kind of meant the Sri Lankan slide started. They weren't able to get out of the blocks. Mahanadi, of course, scored a valiant 35. She batted with great aggression, as she has through the series. She showed a lot of spunk, used her feet really well to the spinners, hit down the ground beautifully, hit a couple of sixes as well. But she didn't have enough support, which meant Sri Lanka only found their way to 98 for 9 in their 20 overs. Archana picked up 3 wickets. Sonam Yadav also bowled quite well to pick up 3 wickets. And, in the end, Sri Lanka just didn't have enough firepower to get anywhere close to the target. And India A, of course, registered a mammoth 77-run win and booked their place in the final against India B, that's definitely going to be a revenge game for them. The afternoon game that saw India B compete against the West Indies, although it was a game of no consequence with the finalists already being decided, there was still a bit of energy, there was still a bit of excitement around the contest. India B handed out debuts to Soumya Varma and Rama Kushwa, and the two of them were seen kind of like bouncing around in the warm-up, wearing their bright royal blue caps, and there was a lot of energy around that India B team, of course. So having opted to bat, the West Indies were put on the back foot early, thanks to some really quality bowling from the two seamers. Vasuvi Fishta and Falak Naz took the new ball in the absence of Shabnam, and both of them struck in their first overs. I thought Falak Naz bowled really aggressive lengths. She was quite full with the new ball, got it to really hoop around, swing in, and got it to swing really late. The West Indies batters were kind of planting their feet across the stumps and having to play around that front pad, which brought the LBW into play. Thought Falak also used the straighter delivery, the cross seam delivery, really well. She got one of the batters to nick off in her early spell, so it was a really, really quality spell from Falak, and I think she's really putting her name forward for that under-19 squad. Of course, having been reduced to 10 for 3 in the third over, there was really no recovering from there for the West Indies. They didn't have anyone who could maybe bat through, who could also kind of bat with an intent. It almost seemed like the batters just shut down. They refused to look for scoring options, or refused to kind of counter-attack. They were just stuck in their crease. Their footwork again was really poor. They were kind of stuck to the crease, wafting outside the off stump, kind of reaching for the ball. And that also was seen in their running between the wickets. There was, they lacked intensity between the wickets, but I thought their judgment was really, really poor. It resulted in 3 runouts, 2 of which were created by the India B skipper, Nikki Prasad, but the West Indies were just very, very lazy between the wickets. Even the way they finished their runs was really, really poor. There were quite a few decisions that went up to the third umpire. Of course, they survived, but just the way that they finished those runs, the way they ran between the wickets, just showed a team that wasn't really in the contest at all. Falak picked up 2 wickets at the start. Parunika Sisodia also picked up 2 wickets. The left-arm spinner, playing her second game, was in fact on a hat-trick at one point. She picked up 2 wickets off the final 2 balls of her second over, but unfortunately and curiously wasn't given a third over, so she didn't have the opportunity to complete that hat-trick. But anyway, West Indies kind of stuttered or tottered their way to 44 all out in 16.5 overs. Now India B already qualified for the final, would top the group if they defeated West Indies, and with 45 to get, they almost had the opportunity to experiment. So Soumya Varma, who was making her debut, took her place at the top of the order alongside Ishwari Savkar, but unfortunately she couldn't make much use of the opportunity. She was quite brilliantly caught by Munisara at extra cover, a one-handed catch that the ball kind of stuck in her hand almost. She just reached at it almost in hope, and the ball lodged in her hand. So Jazz Mitchell picked up her first wicket. Chansey walked in at number 3, didn't last long either. She was caught at mid-on, again off the bowling of Mitchell. So India B were in a slight spot of bother, I guess, but Rama Kushwa joined Ishwari Savkar, and the two of them took the team over the line in just over 7 overs. Ishwari continued her really good form. She scored an unbeaten 32 off just 26 balls, and continued, again, like she had in the previous game, just walking down the track and absolutely flaying the ball through threw square on both sides of the wicket. She played a really good knock and made sure that her team got over the line and that India B finished at the top of the table unbeaten in the group stage. So it looks like the two Indias will face each other in the final. India A led by Shweta Sehrawat, India B led by Nikki Prasad, the captain of the two finalists in the Challenger Trophy, will take each other on in that final tomorrow. It will be a really interesting contest with both teams wanting to win that trophy. It will be their first win in India colours, which will definitely mean a lot to them. So a lot to look forward to on Saturday. Remember to follow me on social media handles, the ones that still exist at the time. And you can follow me there, and I'll keep you updated through the game, hopefully with some videos, but I'll also be around with a review after the final's over. So see you guys next time.